Hi to everyone. We are glad to see you today. That's a workshop focused on fiber optic trainings in Europe. Thank you that you are joining us today, and we would like to see something about what is the status of fiber optic trainings in Europe, where is going not only fiber optic market, but where is going the fiber optic trainings into Europe. So we'll have 1 hour and a half with some experts with more than 20 years experience in fiber optic trainings in Europe in front of your eyes now to tell you something about their experience and to see where is going to the fiber optic trainings in Europe today. So what we will have in this workshop, we will have a first part with presentations from our experts, Martin Cook from CTTS UK. Here he will speak about quality training to meet quality standards. And the second presentation will be for our invited guest, Jan Gordon for Fiber Decay Denmark, who will speak about the mistakes are made by non-trained people and they will destroy our future. And then, of course, we want to make a break. We'll have a small movie from the trainings with images from the trainings from the 3 different countries in Europe, followed up by a roundtable where we'll speak about the future, the present, and why not to see what we can learn from the past fiber optic trainings. So that's the proposed task for today for this workshop, and we'll move then to first introduction part. My name is Cornel Barbut. I'm representing Fiber Optic Association from Romania, AFOR, who is a fiber optic association with 15 members in Romania. You'll see here the members. Among them, there are Prismia, Nestor, Fiber Optic Cables, and Duraline. We have an operator, infrastructure, NetCity, and supplier. So among our members, we try to do different activities, especially trainings. We did more than 200 trainees, let's say, in the last 7 years activity in Romania. So why we speak today about the training? So personally, I have experience of 27 years in fiber optic, and 20 years ago, I remember that I started the first training in working for Siemens. We are now in this conference in Berlin. So working for Siemens in Nigeria, I did the first training myself as a trainer for our workers, was for splicing and then for testing fiber optic. So from then I started the journey in testing and in training. So now what we are looking about the market, what is and where is the fiber optic market in Europe today? According to these, let's say, reports, what we have for Report Linker or for Markets and Markets, we see that Europe is the 3rd region consuming fiber optic after Asia and North America. And we see some values here that still is very big growing part for fiber optic in the world today. So coming to, this was the context in the world, but coming to Europe, according to EDAT, we see here that 70 million of subscribers in FTTH, we have it last year. And we have a coverage rate of 40%, so still means that Europe needs a lot of fiber. We have enough place remaining for fiber optic developments in the next years in Europe. And okay, from this, we are looking in the future, as the name of our workshop is Future Directions. We are looking at this digital agenda for Europe, which is aiming in 2025 to have the connection to all European households. So from here we see a very important driver in fiber optic trainings market that is coming along the fiber optic development. So where we have the targets in the UK, in France, in Germany, and other countries to reach 2025 with 100% coverage, then we need a lot of trainings also. So from this, we are trying to see where are the fiber optic trainings, where are the centers for fiber optic. So we see here like 5 areas of trainings. One is coming from this association, Fiber Optic Association from United States, who has presently 7 certified schools in Europe. One of them is Fiber Decay in Denmark. Jan is here representing these schools, very important schools with accredited and certified schools from Fiber Optic Association in UK. Of course, that in the past were more, but now there are remaining presently 7 schools. Another line is coming from the fiber optic associations in European countries like AFOR, our Fiber Optic Romania, but also European Local Fiber Alliance has, at the beginning they had 6 members, now presently they have 11 members in Europe, so they are doing also trainings. And of course, that a very important part in the training center are the training center approved by the state. Like we have here an example with Martin Cook CTTS in UK, but many, or I can say the majority of the European countries, they have their own training center accredited according to the local regulations. And then we have 3 other lines, 3 other drivers for trainings. One is coming from the material side, like Prismian, Rachel de Massari, the producers of materials. They are doing also themselves trainings usually for their customers. The same as equipment suppliers, like for the OTDRs, splicers, and the ECI for active equipments, for example. And also we see in the last period of time more and more trainings done by the software and solution suppliers, like especially for design, where we have this very big demand in design coming from the solution of design. They are doing the trainings. This is the training market. And now if we are looking where was in the past and where is today, we see here the difference is that in the past was telecom 100% people, and the trainings was focused on activities like installation of fiber optic or splicing or testing. And now today that the range of trainings is expanding. So we see outside of telecom, like fiber optic is used by the utilities, electricity, gas, water, and hospitals, and in the car, in the automotive area, and lighting, in other areas. And we see, especially because this electronic code of communications in Europe being in place since just last year, 2019, that we have this infrastructure access, a lot of focus on this. And with both, so we are not speaking only about the courses in fiber optic, but now we are trying to have 2 areas, basic qualifications, courses, general courses, but also after this we are speaking about accreditations, one by one. So more and more accreditations to come. So these are, let's say, the today side of fiber optic training, but where is going tomorrow? Because we see here a lot of differences, even if the same main important. Why we do trainings? Because the quality is important. The quality is the same yesterday, the same today, and more we can say will be tomorrow. Quality, safety, security, these are the reasons why we need trainings. And also contractors' quality. We saw from our experience a lot of problems from the contractors. So we need a system to check the quality of the contractors and of the people. And not on the last point from tomorrow, motivation in trainings is this smart specialization, because fiber optic is going to abroad, like going to be used for sensors and IoT, smart city, but not only. So we need to see where are the resources for next future development of fiber optic in Europe. So here we need to check where and who will prepare the future people for fiber optic works. So we are trying to see some challenges here in Europe, that we see that there are not enough trainers. So, okay, there are specialists, but not trainers in fiber optic. We see a lot of needs in designers. I have some experience now asking for more and more designers in France, in UK, in other countries also, in Germany. So that's a lot of needs. And of course, that's today we have a clear problem with this online versus offline. In fiber optic, that's a challenge. So we will see today with our experts what we can do, what we cannot do, trainings in fiber optic online, as it is should be required. And then we see another challenge that some countries only, they have this like a national policy up to 2025 to have 100% coverage with fiber optic, and only few countries they have a policy for trainings in fiber optic. I can name only just France, Germany, and UK. So maybe there are more, but not all of the countries. They have a system for fiber optic training, which means the quality is not checked for the development of fiber optic works. We see also migration, a lot of the people, of the personal staff from splicers especially and technicians from moving from one country to another country. And we see this open access model is requiring more and more trainings. And also we see some challenges regarding the changing of technology, like these pre-installed, pre-terminated products. It's a trend that suppliers are trying to do the works without trained people. And this is not so good. So we'll see in our presentations from today the mistakes or the lessons learned from this type of works. And not at the end, but very important are this digitization of fiber optic networks. We are speaking a lot today about digitization. In telecom, we see a lot of focus on fiber optic design, especially digitization, but also we see new technologies like augmented reality or virtual reality in trainings. I saw in testing, for example, to make a test with Viavi or to do with AFOR. So you have some headset and make virtual reality. Or even we are in Germany now in this FTTH conference in Berlin, but we see that Deutsche Glasfaser is using Google glasses. So they wear Google Glass when the people, they make a connection, customer connection, for example, and they know how to make it and which fiber to connect. So they are already implemented new technology. So this, of course, that will require some trainings also. And we are speaking about the network convergence also. So that's between the electricity, the telecom is going behind the other or close to other utilities. So, of course, that there are many needs for fiber optic trainings. Not so much to insist on this. We will see within this presentation from our guest from today. We will have some questions here that to discuss in the round table, and we will look for your questions also in order to see what the experts from the training industry can tell you in the next period of time. So starting from this point, I will invite the first guest from today is Martin Cook from CTTS from UK. The floor is yours, so please tell us something about your experience and what you can say about trainings in UK and in Europe.
Yep. Okay. Well, thanks so much, Cornell. I'm just going to bring up the slide clicker because it's disappeared on me again, as it always does. So just bear with me for one moment.
So no problem. That's I can help you if it's for you. Okay, no problem.
It's disappeared. I've got it now. 2 seconds. I should be with you.
Yeah. So I met Martin was more than 10 years ago when I asked in Romania. I was working at that time for NetCity. It was an infrastructure metropolitan fiber optic network over there, and we didn't know how to blow the fiber optic cable at that time.
Yeah, I think it was maybe 15 years ago now, Cornell. Actually, it's a long time. 10 years ago, but no, 15 years ago. Well, thanks so much indeed. So, hello everybody. My name is Martin Cook. I'm the managing director of Cable Telecommunications Training Services. We're established in the UK some 27 years ago, and we provide training across a number of venues, and have done so all over the world during that 27-year period. And it's interesting what Cornell says about the future and where we're going. In the UK, obviously, we're seeing quite an explosion. Sorry, it's wrong, mate. I'll do that next. Do that one again. We're seeing quite an explosion with the ruling from the government via Ofcom that BT should open up its ducts and its pole or its infrastructure to allow communication providers to run their cables. Physical infrastructure access is causing creating the drive in the economy to see that the infrastructure is going in. So for fibre to the home is happening greatly in the UK. So how do we check and how do we verify that engineer who's got the cable up the telegraph pole or doing the cable inside the duct or inside the chamber, is handling the fibre optic joints, splicing the joints, is actually accredited and certified to use those particular skills or to access the network? What the quality of workmanship is going to be, what the quality standards are. How do you know that cable, that joint, that network is being built to your specification? Well, one way that we do this in the UK, or one method that we have, is what we call the Network Operators Passport Scheme. Now, this is run by an organisation called Smart Awards. And it's a card. Everybody has a card. I don't know if you can see my card, but I'll show you my one on the slides shortly. But everybody carries a card with them. Okay, and on that particular card has all my skills and my qualifications and my certifications that I have qualified in to deliver or to work on that particular fibre cable or a joint or whatever I'm going to be doing, be it an ODF rack, any type of specific product. I will have accreditation or license to operate or work on that particular bit of infrastructure. And we call it the Network Operators Passport Scheme. So it can be scanned. It has a QR code. So quality auditors who are out there quality auditing the network and inspecting the network can approach the operative who's working on the network, ask him to produce his smart card. From there, it can be scanned using the QR code, and then you can see immediately green, amber, red. That individual has first and foremost his safety accreditations. Whichever environment that he's working in, be it a UG, overhead or in-building environment, there are safety accreditations that he must hold. So, for example, if they're doing a fibre optic joint in the ground, they must be confined spaces, they must be able to do gas testing, and all these sort of skills that they will need to go into those environments around the safety aspect. From the safety aspect, we then look at the craft skills and the quality of workmanship. Has that individual got that particular accreditation or license to work on that cable, that joint, etc.? So it has the skills to do that. Okay, so Smart Awards, and again, it could be there, and also the network operator or the client or the contractor can, and the individual can give employers permission to access their accounts and systems, and you can quite easily go online and check that individual's accreditations to see what they have or what not. And again, they will flag up. A lot of the accreditations that we have here in the UK usually run for 3 years, some for more, some for less. And once that particular accreditation's expired, then the individual will need to re-accredit or be re-examined on that particular skill set or fusion splicer, OTDR, cable, joint, etc. So that can all be checked by the employers or the main contractor. So there you can see my cards. That's my Smart Awards card on the left there. Got a QR code that could be scanned. It gives you my ID and it verifies that I can actually splice this particular joint. I can climb a telegraph pole, whatever the case may be. Whatever craft or skill or job function that I'm carrying out at a particular time, it can be on my particular card. We also have what's called the Street Works Qualification Register. So you can't work on the highways or carriageways without one. So if you open up a cable pit or a chamber on the street or carriageway, then you've got to properly and correctly safely guard that for other other pedestrian road users and others that you may affect by your actions. So there's a couple of little licenses there that you need straight away. Can be lots more, and these are customized and bespoke to the individual and the network operator's requirements. Okay, if I go and get a fiber optic qualification at a City and Guilds approved centre or BTEC approved centre, or do a degree or diploma in telecoms, that can go onto my smart card. So that's also on there. But on top of that, I may still be required to do the accreditation piece as well. And I've lost the clicker again, so bear with me. Don't know why that's gone.
It's always a challenge, Martin, to see the trainings. We learn from the trainings also. So this presentation is a learning process too.
No, the clicker keeps disappearing on me. So anyway, we have mandatory skill matrix. Now, in this particular sample or demonstration, this has been issued by the Chief Engineer's Office. So the Chief Engineer said that this is the phased introduction. So here we have the core skills, okay? Probably can't see that, and that is fiber jointing, fiber cabling, FTTP survey, FTTP quality checks, MDU, etc. Then they have then set out the mandatory accreditations that any engineer working in those arenas or in that craft or fiber skill must obtain before they can go onto the network. So those will all be then transposed onto my smart card. If I don't have any of those on my smart card, the site will be shut down, and potentially the whole contract could be lost if you have engineers working on the network without the appropriate accreditations. They can all be phased in. There's also mandatory health and safety. So I spoke about the Road and Street Works Act. That is here on the Road and Street Works Act. They are the supporting qualifications, if you like, for operating in the street, highways and carriageways, etc. So the safety qualifications that are used to open up and guard the cable pits and the likes. So these are not done by the contractor. They are the operator's standards. So the operator's standards, the operator's accreditation, saying to the contractors, saying to the engineer that these are what you must have to work on our network. Okay, and another sample for those skills matrix issued by the chief engineers with all the different things that they can do, be it duct surveys, carriageway surveys, and the likes there. Okay, FTTC, FTTP, FTTH, quality checks, what sort of training that they must have undertaken, be it overblow, fiber blowing, cabling underground, copper jointing in some respect, excavation and reinstatement and the likes if they're actually digging up the carriageways. So there's some of the examples that we can do and how we can drive up those particular standards by keeping quality checks and the engineers being able to evidence what they can actually do on the ground by having their smart card. In the next slide here, we have just some examples of some accreditations. So PIA overhead cable installation, PIA subducting cable installation, and PIA duct survey only. So a communications provider will registered or get enrolled with OpenReach, get permission to work on their particular networks, or onboarded. They then get their CP documents and then the accreditations. And the accreditations is the best way to, the analogy that was frequently used is that training is the driving lesson when you're learning to drive a car. That is the training. And then once you're ready, you will take your driving test. Okay, well, accreditation is the driving test. So once they've completed the training, the candidate or the engineer is then put forward or goes forward to do the accreditation. And once they complete the accreditation, they're then licensed to operate or licensed to work in that particular skill. So if an engineer does overhead cable installation, that's all he can do on that particular part. It doesn't mean he can also do subduct and cable installation. He has to do each of those accreditations. So he gains the relevant numbers from the accreditation, be it what S8 S7, S6 in this particular case. And once they've got those, they will then go on to the smart card, and then again, he can go on and carry on and do the work. Now, obviously, there's a lot more detailed information. There's a lot of content. The training program can be designed, that's down by the training provider. But the accreditation and how that is set out and how that is achieved is governed by these documents. And these documents come from published by the Chief Engineer's Office. So it's the operator's method statement, if you like, how that's going to be achieved. So that's accreditation. So once you've done that, so we've done subduct and cable installation, therefore we can then learn, or the engineers can learn how they can do it, what the quality of workmanship, what the standards are. Now, this is not the operator in this particular case for PIA, it's not dictated to them. This is what the quality standards are expected for them once they work on the network and how they lead the network once they've been working in that particular environment. And from that, you must have realistic training environments. Okay, very difficult to teach this sort of stuff online when you need to actually go on and do physical activities of such as, you know, subduct and cable installation. So training needs analysis is also very important. We spoke about this last year or the year before at the council conference. Very, very important, because from the training needs analysis comes out the actual design of the training course, how it's going to be evaluated, is it going to be accredited, and we go on from there from the training needs analysis. From that we get what called the facilitator guides. It gives us our aims and objectives, how we're going to achieve it, what's going to be achieved, and what will be a result of the engineer receiving this particular training. So that's very important, that you structure your training, you have a look at what's required, because you don't want to be training somebody or providing courses that are no use to the individual at the end of the day. They need to be able to do the job function that they're going out to do, be they a contractor or in fact an employee. So training needs analysis is important. From that, we have what's called the facilitator guide. Most people will call that the lesson plan. But the facilitator guide is far more detailed. It helps the instructor, the trainer, understand what he should be doing, when he should be doing it, what resources that particular skill set or that particular learning outcome requires. Okay, what facilities he needs to deliver it, what is the bill of materials they're going to need to deliver it, and it helps the trainers plan their lessons and to deliver their lessons to the required standards.
So 2 more minutes, please, Martin.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we need realistic working environments. Seen this one before. So if you're going to train an astronaut, you need a zero gravity. If you're going to train somebody to build a pond, you need ponds. Okay, so that's important. So you need realistic working activities, realistic training environments, demonstrate competency. So the engineer demonstrates how they can achieve that. We have assessments. So once they've received the training, they've done the driving lessons, they can then get the driving test. Okay, so realistic working environments. If you're working at height, you've got to be at height. If you're working underground, you've got to be underground. And I'm probably rushing through that a little bit too much, Cornell, for you. But there again, you know, you've got lots of diagrams, we've got lots of architectures, we've got lots of things, but they need to build it realistically in the training environment. So UG networks, built-in chambers, built on the poles, above ground, underground, it all needs to be simulated and be realistic. So they can go into confined spaces, and they can gas test, and they can be safe whilst working in those environments. Okay, problems in Europe, we've seen before, low skill, people are trying to say it's low skill or downskilling, what's required. But once they do that, they then hit problems. Because it's not as low skilled as people would like to see. Simple thing of cutting a tube incorrectly can cause all kinds of problems and blockages, delays the workflow, causes another truck roll, causes more expense and more cost. Okay, so something to work about. And this stems really from the training budgets. If the training budgets are low, your network operations will be higher, your network costs will be higher, and your maintenance costs will be higher. So training is important. So we have accreditations, and that really concludes my presentation. Thanks very much, Cornell.
Thank you, Martin, for your experience. That I understand that not only the system of training is well established there, as UK is aiming 2025 to reach 100% coverage. So I don't know if you can cover all these training needs in UK. In your opinion, what do you think?
Well, we in the UK at the moment, we've opened a new centre today in Northern Ireland. We're opening multiple centres in the UK to cope with the demand. We are absolutely inundated with the need for accredited training, because the smart card and the safety aspect of it is extremely prevalent, obviously. But yeah, it's extremely very, very busy. And we always say that if you use training as the barometer of how the industry or the sector or the demand is, it's extremely high pressure at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Martin. So I would like to pass now the floor to see if we have a high pressure on training on other side for the sea, let's say on Denmark. About Denmark, we can hear from Jan Gordon Fuji, an expert, let's say, in trainings, a lot of trainings in splicing testing. Jan has a rich experience in trainings in fiber optic. So what can you tell us about?
Well, thank you for letting me. Different training sessions, and in the beginning it was mostly people who were interested in was installation training, but now because of a lot of mistakes, more and more courses are going on fault finding and things like that. Why do we choose to use fibers at home? Well, fiber beats copper in speed, fiber beats copper in latency, fiber beats copper in lifetime, and fiber beats copper in customer satisfaction. So everything is talking about that we should install fiber, and people are lots of places saying, well, we can still use the copper. We don't need to replace all the copper and things. But what we're seeing is that the amount of places where fiber is being used is growing very, 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 very fast. To meet the goals, we need quality, and this is a couple of the slides from the last presentation was also on quality. But this is probably the most thing, because if we look at a copper installation, many times a copper installation, you can tell the customer, well, it doesn't need to be very good quality because we're going to upgrade it in 2 or 3 years' time. But the fiber is going to last for many, many years, so we can't have an extra opportunity to go out and do the upgrade. The two main parts is the problem is the handling and is the installation. Handling is when we're getting all the materials out to the site, and the next is the installation where people are installing it. This is where all the problems are coming. Handling, that's transporting materials to the site. Mostly it's cables and duct problems. Cable and drums transported wrongly get destroyed before arriving. I've been to court several times having to decide about the problems, and everybody is saying, well, we've got delivered materials which were bad, but usually you can find out where the material have been destroyed in the process. On most drums today, you get small pictograms like this one here showing how to handle it. But when I go around driving around the country and so on, I see lots of places where they don't even look at the sign here. They're probably pulling it off or can't look at pictures because it's definitely not the way they're doing it. I was at one place where they had to destroy 25 drums of cable because they had been stacked the wrong way. And it took half an hour to convince the people who had stacked them that what they was doing was the wrong way. They were even suggesting that they were delivered in the way they were stacked up. This is a typical picture of what you look like when you go out in the countryside. So they have laid down the drums. I'm not sure why they laid them down, because it's very difficult to get them from standing up to laying them down and then having to get them up again. But for some reason they've done it. And when you see something like this, look a bit more closely to see what they're doing. This is the problem which is happening. So you can see on both pictures here, it's from different installations where they've got the corkscrew effect on the cable or the duct here. And some people say it's not a problem. The picture on the right side, I stopped up and asked what he was doing, and he told me he was measuring the length of the duct. And then I said, but you can't lay it in that way. And he said, oh yeah. I said, what are you going to do then? Well, he was going to put it back on the drum and then roll it out correctly next time. So a very strange way of working. This is what happens though. You see the kinks in the ducting here, and the picture on the left-hand side, what happened was I contacted the company which was getting installed, and by the time they got out there, everything was buried in the ground and there was nothing to see. So they had to dig it up and then could find that there was a problem, that the ducting had been destroyed. This is a picture I found on LinkedIn. This is, not sure who it is, but this is bad installation. This is the enclosure which wasn't made properly, and temperature expansion has caused all the tubes to be broken here. This is a picture from another place from Denmark, where somebody hadn't put the fibers in the trays correctly, and because of temperature changes, the fibers started popping out at the end of the cassettes. Not very smart, really, for an installation which is going to have a long lifetime. So mistakes are being made everywhere. It's in the ducting, it's blowing cables, it's placing the fibers in the cassettes, it's the strain relief, and it's also testing. People are not very good at analyzing the test results. So, go back one, sorry. Installation, it's fiber deployment is the most expensive part. If we look at the cost of the cables and we look at the cost of the deployment, then the cable price is practically free of charge compared to the deployment costs. Everything must be made upgradable today. What I mean is that when you place the cable in the ground, you must be able to have a very long lifetime of the cable, and you must be able to upgrade to the speed which is going to be the bandwidth which is going to be usable in the future. So what I've got here is a case study from one of my travels. It was an installation which was been outsourced, so that the customer who was buying the installation had not made the installation, but had got another company to build the installation for them. And I was there at the outsourced, the overhanding points where they could see what they was doing. So there was one person out in the field. He was sitting with a light source, and the other person at the other end at the pop was with the power meter, and he was just measuring the loss in the different fibers. So it was a 96 core link which is being measured, and there was a variation of up to 3 dB per link. Thinking about 3 dB, that's 50% loss of signal. So that's really too big a variation for a link which is that big, or with only connectors at each end. And the variation was due to bends. So what I did was I looked in one of the enclosures, and we got a mid-span breakout here. This was the way the installation was built. At every mid-span, there was taken one tube out, and the rest went on. I made an OCR trace at 1310 nanometers. Could see there was a slight loss underway. The slight loss is not alarmingly big at 1310 nanometers, so not a problem if you're only measuring here. But looking at 1550, there was quite a big loss. Loss was over 4 dB here. And then measuring at 1625 nanometers, we had a loss of 7 dB. They told me that the losses was not a problem because it was going to work and there was plenty of budget. But what it was, in fact, was in some of the enclosures, they had kinked the tubes. So this was the cause of it. And this was in practically every one of the enclosures I went out to see. There was at least one or two of the tubes which had a little kink. The little kink here will probably break the fibers at some time or give it a severe bend. This was a new installation, so it hadn't been out very long. If we look at the evolution of PON, PON is the installation type which is being deployed more and more places around the world. We can see that the upgrading factor is beginning to go. GPON is coming to its end, even though a lot of people say we are going to deploy GPON. It looks like GPON will stop very soon because of the amount of bandwidth which people are demanding. So we have to look at the next versions, the next generations of the PON, which is going to be upgraded with.
So, Jan, what do you say about the future of PON, of GPON? What should be after GPON? Because now we see in Europe a lot of GPON developments.
Yeah, well, we have the different versions, the NG-PON2 and XGS-PON, and then the later ones with the some of the IEEE standards as well. So I think we will see some will be choosing NG-PON2 and some will be choosing the XGS-PON.
I know that in Switzerland they are using Swisscom 10G PON, XG-PON, like that's between these two options, maybe XGS and NG-PON.
Yeah, but we still have one operator has said here that there will be the next 5 years they will be upgrading to GPON. So I hope they have put some mistakes in their presentation about it. Okay. But if we look at the problem with upgrading is that we need the extra frequencies, the extra wavelengths. So whereas until now, if you've only been doing a cable T on your PON system, then we've been running up to 1550 nanometers. But now the Gen 10G PON is running up at 1575 to 1580 nanometers, and even some up at some are going up to 1600 nanometers. These networks won't work if you have a budget loss of 7 dB now. So the networks won't be upgradable unless you go out to every enclosure and start removing all the kinks, probably meaning they'll have to resplice a lot of the fibers. And there's probably not enough room in this. So
this upgrading of the GPON from what it is now, let's say from 1 gig to 10 gig, in your opinion, what should be the challenges? To check all the splices almost, isn't it?
This is going to be the big challenge because they'll have to go out and remeasure everything to find out where you can do an upgrade with no problems. And what we're seeing is that a lot are just making a loss measurement at 1310 nanometers, and they're saying, oh, the loss is not too bad, so that's going to be an acceptable installation, not thinking of the consequences when they have to start upgrading to something which is with more bandwidth. And I think we're going to see that the upgrades are come faster because the GPON and the point-to-point in Denmark have been going for a long time now. And it's just suddenly that now 1G for everybody is becoming very interesting. More and more people are looking at getting the top bandwidth here. So we will see that more and more people are getting aware of it. We can see that Netflix is giving us very high quality. One of the problems here in the Corona crisis that people have been sent home to do work at home, and Netflix was told to please reduce the bandwidth of your movies because we haven't got enough bandwidth for the people at home so they can do their work. So this is showing us that the system we have at the moment is on the limits of what we can do. And if we're going to expect to have people be working at home, then we need more bandwidth practically everywhere.
Okay.
Looking at the future, only fiber can give us these higher speeds. There's no other meter which can. A lot of people are saying that, well, 5G is going to solve the problems, but people don't think about 5G is it runs on fiber. The big difference between 5G and 4G is that the the wireless part of 5G is a lot smaller than 4G. So you need fiber to every cell tower, and everything is going to be running on 5G. But that means we're going to be needing even more and more fiber deployed. Bad installations, we're going to get lower speed, we're going to get packet loss, we're going to get latency, we're going to get unstable installations. And a lot of talk is about getting cars running on it and self-driving cars. Just think of you're driving your car on the motorway and suddenly it says, oh, sorry, no internet connection. And then it stops or carries on going. We're going to have some big problems. Fiber does training around the world. We're certified by lots of vendors, do training in lots of different countries. The expectations in many countries is different. Lots of the countries I've been doing training in, they don't expect proper labs. They think that labs is just other slides. So I was at one place doing training, and then I said, now it's your turn. And I'd set up some different labs where they could do splicing, fusion splicing, and measuring and everything. And nobody got up, and they said, why aren't you getting up? And they said, well, we thought the next set of slides would be coming now. And they were very surprised to see that there was equipment that they could touch in the room. It's very bad when people have this type of expectations. Done training for over 20 years in fiber. In the beginning, companies were willing to pay for the training because it was new and nobody could figure out how to do it. But today, training is becoming more difficult as people are not willing to pay. Everybody has been making their companies more efficient over the last years. And one of the ways to make a company more efficient to earn more money is just to stop getting people trained. And this is very bad because some of the places I get called out to for doing assessments, or practically all of them, assessments on installations. People give out a tender expecting some qualified work. Everybody comes in, gives you say we can do the work. Everybody is trying to do it at a cheaper price, and the installations are just getting worse and worse because people are using the cheaper, untrained people to do the problem here, and this is very, very bad. The future, due to the amount of installations made today by untrained people, we're going to see there's going to be lots of fault finding training needed. We're going to see more and more people are going to need a training like this. So that was the last slide in my presentation.
So you are doing also, Jan, some quality check, as I understood, from various operators. So did you find many faults during
this
checks?
I found. Pardon?
Did you find a lot of faults in your checks?
Yes, I've been to different countries. I had one place I went, they had blown over 100 kilometers of cable, and every inch of the cable was broken. I've been to some other places where they was complaining about the loss in the patch cords was over 60 B. They had forgotten to clean them. There was one place I went to, the person was very good at showing. He showed me when he looked up, opened a little enclosure in the basement. Then the fibers jumped out 20 centimeters, but he showed me a technique how you could push the fibers into the box and put the lid on. Yeah, this is very strange. That and he said that he was very pleased because he had found this way of putting the lid on and turning the lid, and then you could push the fibers in back, and then everything would look nice.
Just looking aesthetics, but functionality after this is wondering why it's not working.
Yeah, a lot of it as well, Cornell, is that quite rightly pointed out by Ian, is that a lot of the networks that are being installed and are installed are going to collapse. They're going to fall over due to the way that they've been installed, and the lifetime of the cable, the manufacturer will probably tell you is 25 years, 30 years or more. Okay, but the actual installation and the aesthetics of it above the ground may look okay above the ground, but actually when you drill down into these closures, chambers, any kind of fiber management system, you'll find that it hasn't been done correctly. And what I've just gleaned from from Ian's presentation then is bends and dirt are two network killers.
Yeah.
Okay, they will kill your networks. Fiber characterization, absolutely critical. Be able to go out there and characterize your fiber. And training is seen as a cost, not as an investment. The operators and the contractors should see it as an investment in their people. If you invest in your people with good quality training, they will stay with you. Okay.
The strangest thing I think is that when you have children, then you send everybody to school. But if you have a fiber business, one person might know a bit about it, and he can teach everybody else. So a good suggestion to the whole education system around the world is stop sending all your people to school, because if one person's been to school, then he can do all the training for everybody else. That's what we do in the fiber business.
It's a very good statement, Jan. So I would like to take this statement also for the roundtable afterwards. So then, just for the moment, we'll stop the first part of our workshop, which is in the halfway. So I would like just to say that normally when we planned this workshop, we had 6 speakers invited. Now we are only 3 because of these COVID pandemic times. But for example, one of the speakers should be Stefan Carlsen from Stockholm. He is CTO there, but he had a stroke, unfortunately, last week. He is now in the hospital. But what I've got from him for all of you who are watching us today, is that he has 2 ideas for fiber optic trainings. One is that he is expecting to have a network of fiber optic municipality networks, because the number of fiber optic municipalities is growing more and more. But when you see a lot of lessons learned, like Jan and Martin said before, from the installation of ducts, the civil works, with a lot of problems, so it's like a need to have a network for fiber optic metropolitan networks to get in touch and to learn from the lessons, what mistakes had been done in the past. It's one idea from Stefan. And the second idea, it's something very interesting, that we in fiber optic are learning and growing up, like we 20 years experience. So the question is, what about the young guys, the future of fiber optic specialists, where they can learn from? So Stefan came with an idea that he, for example, can be available for 1 hour per month, for example, in a platform for Q&A session. For example, if there are students or beginners in fiber optic market or in any fiber optic job, they can contact these people who has experience. So why not to have a platform for fiber optic experts where you can speak with them, to plan the meeting with them and to have an option to speak with them. That's idea from future of direction of fiber optic training. So now we are done with our first part with presentations. We'll follow up now. We'll go to the video, to the movie, a small video with pictures from what we have seen during the trainings in the 3 countries. So we would like to see this movie. And after this, we'll come to the roundtable with free discussion between the speakers. We are coming back again after this movie. where you see some pictures where the trainings had been done in various countries, different aspects, and as our guest speakers was telling before about the problems in installation, so the trainings means also living labs, holes, manholes, that they need a living lab. So that's not possible to make only theory. That's why maybe this in fiber optic trainings, we cannot speak about online trainings only. So we need offline. We need to have hands-on training course. So now all of you who are watching us, we launch a poll that within this poll we would like to hear how many of you are the trainees who had fiber optic trainings up to now, or how many of you had been passed through experience of fiber optic trainers? Because all of us, we need training. We are speaking about quality here and we need training. So that's why we are asking you to fill in this poll and to hear your questions also during this session, Q&A. In the next half an hour, we are here to speak with you. So we'll ask the experts present today to have some free discussions about fiber optic trainings. So that's why now I will initiate the first question to our distinguished guest. What changes COVID-19 pandemic has brought to their training courses in UK and in Denmark? I will start with Jan and after this with Martin. So what changes do you have in your training center?
Well, lots of hand spirits and masks and sometimes gloves. That's the only thing. Everything else is the same. So it hasn't really affected the training very much, apart a little bit of distancing. But if you're in a room with some people and you have to be there for a whole week, then I don't think the distancing is going to help very much, because people breathing in the room, it's going to be everywhere. So the best thing, of course, was if people are not infected in any way. But I've had no problems, and everybody can, if they want to use it, they've got it. And some places I've been to, it's been a requirement to get temperatures measured and things like that. But a very small problem, really.
Very small problem. So it means that the participants generally in your courses are not so many. So what is the number of the trainees?
Normally, when it's at my training lab, there's normally only 4 or 5 people altogether.
Okay. So for this one,
and when
when
it's at big companies, then sometimes there's 10 or 12 people, because that gives you the best training is when you have a small number of people.
Perfect, great. Okay, thank you. Martin, from your side, what changes has brought this COVID-19?
Yeah, well, we had to first and foremost follow government instructions, and the Health and Safety Executive laid out quite clear guidelines. We followed a lot of what schools and universities were doing. First and foremost, we did a risk assessment. We did a COVID risk assessment. Then we had to produce what's called a site readiness plan, and we had to look at how we're going to open up. What we did as a business, we installed thermal cameras that monitor the delegates' flow through the buildings, through the training rooms, etc., and it will pick out hot people. I know it's only a moment in time, but it was just a measure that we put in place, along with a lot of the measures that Ian's just mentioned there, masks, sanitizers, visors, this sort of thing. The main one that we did was we reduced the instructor to student ratios. So we would normally be planning at about 1 on 8, but we dropped down to 1 on 4. So we went down to 50%, and then we crept back up a little bit to 75% in line with the government guidelines, and we're still sitting at 50%, 75% at the moment, depending on the activity. A lot of the activities where you can socially distance quite simply when you're doing a lot of external work. But yeah, we've done all the normal measures, following basically the government guidelines and what the government recommend what we can and what we should do under these circumstances, but mainly reducing the numbers down.
Okay, but this number reducing means affecting the business at the end of the day. So from this point, maybe is a challenge what plans do you
Yeah.
have for next year, 2021 training courses? Is there any change from the actual 2020 or before training plans? So from your perspective, Jan, so what changes do you have in mind for your next year trainings?
Well, my training room is for 8 people, but I never have more than 4 or 5 people, so there won't be any changes. But of course, we listen to the government, but we haven't had any restrictions on under 10 people. So I haven't had any problems with that at any time yet.
So for you, it's going ahead the same. This is somehow good. So it's good to have a continuity in fiber optic training.
Yeah, my trainees always are very surprised when I say, "Well, you're only B4." They're very surprised, and they think training is fantastic when you have this little number.
Great. Yeah. What about Martin? So what plans do you have for 2021 and the next years?
Can you tell me if the vaccine's going to work or not, Cornell? You know, it depends. It depends on what the government say. You know, we are still staged release from lockdown. We have different tiers within different regions of the country. So it's a complex situation because we may have people traveling from a higher tier region into another region, and it all depends what the government say and how the vaccine on the vaccination programs go. I know the government's ordering millions and millions of vaccines, and it will depend on what we're allowed to do or not to do in accordance with the health and safety and the government's guidelines. So business planning is extremely difficult because you can't tell me what the COVID situation is going to be in Q1, Q2 next year.
Of course, that we need to check and to be careful with what is going behind us. So what I can complement also from Romania, for example, we saw a change in the name of the courses in fiber optic. For example, we did last week a training for security of fiber optic networks, for example. So we didn't have 5 years ago something like this. That is coming more and more important because during this time, as you mentioned, Martin, that the broadband, and so Jan, you said about the broadband of Netflix, so the quality of fiber optic networks is coming more and more important. So then it's coming the new types of training of courses for fiber optic, like security of fiber optic networks, like quality of fiber optic networks. So this we had been seen in Romania. So coming now with another question regarding to this fiber optic training to both of you. What should be the motivation for the people to come to the training? You see the difference from the past to the future as you see from your experience? Jan, and after this, Martin, please.
Yeah, well, I think training should be considered as free of charge because when you get back from training, you learn so much and you work faster and you work better and you make less faults. So it's very easy it's not like putting money on the lottery where there's a chance of you winning. When you go on training, you're going to win. So it should be no problem to people investing in training.
Yeah, and I can only endorse what Ian just said. I mentioned it earlier that training should be seen as an investment in the staff and the people. The motivation to do the training is to get the accreditations so they can actually work on the network, and for the contractors to maintain or keep the contracts or achieve the contracts and get selected for future contracts.
Yeah, that's something like quality, but could be a force, like obligation. Force is coming from the operator side, and the obligation is coming from the quality check control.
Audits.
Audits. But from your experiences, we see that now, like in some countries, is coming more and more important, the national broadband plan. So we need more, let's say, qualified resources in fiber optic. What or how do you see the education system for fiber optic works? Do you see in the schools coming on to have early stage education for fiber optic in the high school or in the vocational school? Or how do you see the future of education for fiber optic in the next 5 years? Jan and Martin.
Yeah, well, the problem with the schools teaching is that people do not have very much experience. So they are teaching out from some textbook, something they've read, and getting an installation to work in a classroom is no problem because there's nothing with temperature, there's nothing with real world or anything. And this is probably the biggest challenge, that people think they're good at fiber, but are not good at it. And the same, some people who are training think they're good at it, but aren't really good at it at all.
Okay.
Martin?
What I would say was that it is ingressing into schools and what we call FE, further education. But as Jan's saying there, a college lecturer who has a degree in electronics and communications or whatever has probably never ever done a fusion splice, has never done an OTDR trace. So they're teaching it blind, but and again, they would not invest in the capital equipment that they would need as a college or a school in fusion splices, OTDRs, cable systems, the labs that Ian spoke about earlier on. All of those sort of things are being attempted, and in fact, they could be sort of sowing the seeds for people to come out and then look at specialist training providers. But again, as Ian said, I think training should always be looked as an investment in that individual.
I was at one training session. Then there was a person who had been on, I always asked, what background have you got? And one of them said he'd been to a university for 2 years, fiber optic training. And I thought, crikey, this is going to be a bit of a challenge having him on the training. And then a bit later on, he asked, how big is the splice? And I said, what do you mean? I said, how big is a fusion splice? Because I've never seen one. And I was wondering if you could, if you have one in the room or this, you could show me or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the problem of gap between the academic and let's say the teaching theory and the practice. So, but I saw some colleges with coming to learn with equipment with the lab inside.
Yeah. About just a story that I will share with you all is that we were approached maybe 15 years ago now to do some fiber optics training for an art school, and I said, well, what do you want to do with the fiber optics? What outcomes? What do you want to actually do? And they told me they wanted to make fiber optic Christmas trees.
Yeah.
This is Christmas trees are coming also very soon, so it's important also to see after Christmas what we can see after these problems or mistakes on the people. So coming more and more, I see maybe we need to make like an inventory of all the mistakes made by the people in the fiber optic works. Do you think a register, an inventory of all these problems or faults in the works would be good, or what do you think?
Well, we could look at all those. We can throw those into a hat and see what what the outcomes are. There is a whole library of these things out there.
So Jan, you made many checks. So do you see good results to have an inventory of all the faults done?
And there's loads of mistakes, and the trouble is people are not interested in showing their mistakes.
No.
Getting allowed to take pictures there is sometimes a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
So if I could take pictures of all the mistakes I found, then we could fill up half the internet with that.
Yeah. And we do look for audit reports. We look for what we call critical defects. And if there's a common theme, such as Ian pointed out earlier on, kinks in tubes or over tightening of cable ties, whatever the case may be, if there's a common critical defect, then that can be fed back to the training providers. The training providers can make sure more emphasis is done on that particular defect to eliminate it from the network completely.
Yeah, so this coming, that we are reaching to the core of our workshop, coming to the future directions for fiber optic training. So coming from these experiences with a lot of faults and a lot of problems. So, for example, I know that this Deutsche Glasfaser, the company in Germany, they are using new technologies like Google Glasses. Some other people company are using VR. So what do you think about these directions? Where is going fiber optic trainings in the near future? What should be the directions? Should be using new technologies? Should be a mix to online, offline? What do you think in the near future? Jan, and after this, Martin, please.
Well, the presentations could be done offline, but when I do training, I always say we do presentations in the morning and then we do labs in the afternoon to follow up. So this would mean that they only have to come in for half a day, but then there's no point in them. They might as well come in for the full day. So I don't think training is going to change much. I think we have to emphasize more and more on the labs to get people to do them properly, to check everything what they're doing, and maybe some of the presentations could be done in some offline way.
Yeah. At the end of the day, Colonel, training is not going to change too much in that respect. Like Ian says there, you may even have a virtual trainer who will pop out of your phone and then stand there and teach you. But still, you need somebody. You know, the bandwidth or the capability of fiber will allow those sort of things to come along. But there won't be a great deal of change in the craft skills and the engineering skills that me and Ian deliver on a daily basis. You know, the evidence of proving that person can do this particular role or job. Okay, and because of the craft skills that are required, that needs to be done face to face.
So, for example, if other people, they will say about the future of robots, for example, do you see the robots in fiber optic industry and checking all these walls, splicing and testing? What do you think?
Not in my lifetime, and I will be retired by then, Cornell. So.
Yeah, I think also my time will be over by that time. But we're seeing some of the equipment is becoming a bit smarter. The trouble is that if you look at the smart OTDRs, which they can do the correct measurement and give you the analysis, they analyze wrongly. Splices are analyzed correctly, but APC connectors are winged out as defect splices. And people are just looking at the red cross. Oh, the red cross means it's bad, so we have to send out a technician. They don't understand. They have to look at the values. So the problem with the smarter equipment is just making it even more difficult now.
Agree with you. So, Jan, this is a very good subject brought in that in your presentation, you show also the trace. So now the new reflectometers are showing and changing from this visual representation of testing of fiber optic measurement is changing to linear representation, this ILM. So this, how do you see? Because also from my experience that is going through this linear is something like pass and fail, but this is not good enough. It's just like for the people which don't think about the motivation. How do you see this evolution of the equipment in terms of fiber optic testing? Jan and Martin.
Yeah, it's the problem is getting bigger and bigger because people say, well, the salesman told me you can do this very quickly and this is very smart. Just press the auto button, and it's not working. So they need to be first convinced that they have to switch off the auto button, and then afterwards they have to learn all the things which the salesman told them you don't need to learn.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to be done with actual their knowledge, because anybody can press a button and say, yeah, it works, but what actually are they looking at? What is that trace telling them? What is that fiber characterization device saying to them? Can they interpret those results? Is it correct? You know, yes, some of that can be done by webinar, some of it can be done online, but you've then got to assess the candidate's ability to actually physically do it, rather than just sit there and listen to it. So it's all for the way that they want to deliver this particular training or the knowledge. Yeah.
So from the knowledge and content of the trainings, I would like to pass through and going to audience of the training. So in your experience, do you see women, for example, in this fiber optic market, like splicing and testing? So what is your experience? Do you have a woman as a trainee, or do you foresee more women as a trainee in the near future?
No, we've interviewed a number of females for trainer roles, and I know there's many females and women working in the fiber sector in the UK. OpenReach is a classic example of that. They have many female operatives or engineers working in the field.
I've trained quite a few women or girls as well. The biggest difference, if you tell a girl or a woman that you have to do it in this way and clean it in this way, then they do it. If you tell a boy or a man, the only thing he thinks about, how if I cheat, if I do it in a different way, I can get it done faster. So women make better fiber optics installations than men do.
That's interesting, let's say, note or observation. It's very nice to hear such a difference. And it's good that maybe to encourage the women and girls to come in this sector, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it will be very good for more.
Yeah. We have what we have in the UK called glam engineers. Okay, female engineers. It's good. They're working. That's
great to have such let's say new trainees more and more. So from this point of view, coming to this the same future, and I know that both of you have an overseas experience, so going beyond the Europe, because our theme now is fiber optic trainings in Europe, but we can learn also from other countries and other continents. So what can you tell me from your experience out of Europe in other continents, Jan, and after this Martin, please?
Well, in some of the Arab countries, there was lots of girls on the training, and others it's a bit of difficult. There's sometimes a man-woman barrier in some of the countries, how close you can go to them, and things like that. But it works out in all cases. It's no problem really. You just have to think about it.
I saw in your movies and in your presentation, Jan, some Muslim people coming to the training.
Yes.
So
yeah, I've done training in lots of the Muslim countries.
Yeah.
Okay. So from your experience, Martin, what do you see the difference between Europe and other continents?
Well, the technology is the same, Cornell, and the same issues that we're talking about today exist in all these different countries. So regardless of what the country is, it's the approach to that quality assurance, that quality training to meet quality standards, what those quality standards, who's setting those quality standards. Okay, it doesn't matter what country, religion, background, ethnicity at all. It's all the same principle. Okay, we don't do a fusion splice in Africa, Asia, America, Europe. It's the same type of splice everywhere in the world.
One difference I see is that the people who train in the Muslim world is more the bosses. It's not the bottom worker, the person who's going to do splicing. You train the bosses because that's cheaper. Then you only have one boss from the company. And then you expect that when the boss is trained, then everybody else can do it.
Absolutely. I had a really good experience of that in Egypt when I went out and did some blown fiber training. All they wanted to do was train the general manager, and then he was going to train his own trainers and then cascade it down, and the quality then just went straight out the door.
Okay, yeah. So sometimes it's very, very good to have like a top-down approach. I saw, for example, in Romania, some cases that they made a training once, and after this, all the employees, they try to make by themselves. But unfortunately, they don't have enough time because they have so much work to do, and they don't have enough time to teach inside their organization. So here I see, let's say, a problem of what we call the job of fiber optic trainer. I don't know if this job, for example, fiber optic trainer, like not fiber optic splicer, but fiber optic trainer, is it a job recognized by the state in Denmark, in UK, or how do you see this job in the next 5 years? Jan, and after this, Martin, please.
Well, it's at the moment, it's nothing. There's no kind of thing, but there's a lot of people who are saying they are fiber optic technicians. So I've trained about, given certificates to over 700 people now, but a lot of others, they call themselves technicians and have never been on training and have no idea about it really.
But I'm asking you, Jan, about the trainers, fiber optic trainers. As a trainer, do you have any job classified in Denmark legislation as fiber optic trainer?
No, not as a, but you get, I have a university degree for training, but not in fiber, but a training degree. If you can train, then you can train in most subjects. It's not, you just need to put the subject on afterwards.
What is your experience, Martin, for fiber optic trainer?
Okay, so it's simple for our business. Again, there is no legislation in place to say what a fiber optic trainer must do. There are some affiliations or awarding organizations that say that they obviously, first and foremost, for us as a business, they must have their teacher qualification, and that is at level 4. And they must also have what we call their assessors award. That's their ability to assess an individual to carry out a particular job function. Okay, so there must be a qualified assessor. They must have their teaching qualifications. And for us, it takes me about anywhere between 18 months to 2 years before I would allow a trainer to train on his own. He will shadow another trainer, and then they do co-teaches. They do sit-ins. They sit and listen and learn from the trainer. They watch the trainer deliver, a licensed trainer deliver. Once they've done that, they do what we call co-teaching. So he might teach the decibel, he might teach splicing, he might teach a bit of OTDR, and then the professional trainer who's qualified will continue on. That's what we call co-teaching, and then from that he then goes on to do a full teach, but he's then observed by what we call a lead trainer. And then we have an IQA, an internal quality audit system, where he's observed and there's various teaching observations that he has to pass through. And then we have a process, a green, amber, red process, but that can take up to 2 years for that trainer to be certified as a trainer. But that's purely what we do. That's our own self-initiative, what we do as a business.
It's in your business. Okay, so coming to Jan, what Jan said about these technicians, what I'm looking at, that people will not need only trainings, but will need also certifications. Like you said, Jan, that many people, they are saying that they are technicians, fiber optic, they are good. But do you see, Jan, any opportunity or any need in the near future for validation or certifications of their skills? For example, how good is in fiber optic splicing or testing?
Well, more and more companies in Denmark are now beginning to find the value of certifications. So I'm getting a lot of training requests now because of the certification. So that's proving that it's very important. And I can see that the number of people wanting the certification is growing fast now.
Yeah,
it's kind of like the market is beginning to become mature because of the number which have got a certificate and talk about it. So that means more and more people say, wow, I think I need a certificate as well in some way.
Yeah, that's great, gentlemen, because now we are approaching to the end. We have only 1 minute left. So one of the conclusions from this workshop is that more and more certifications need is required and growing. It's a big demand for certification in fiber optic trainings in Europe. We see a lot of requirements for networking between the trainers, between the training centers in Europe, and also for a system which is required to have for the fiber optic trainings. Of course, that we need to have at each country level on the countryside, but also we can come on the European experience to share and to have a system with experience and lessons learned for all the fiber optic trainings in Europe. So we are here for your experience. We are making an initiative to gather all this experience in fiber optic trainings, and we are looking forward for helping and supporting all the fiber optic trainings in Europe in the next period of time. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Martin, for this participation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we are looking forward for everyone who is looking at this workshop to send us questions, and we'll come back to you, reply, and try to make a connection and a good network for raising the quality in fiber optic networks in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.